Hey guys, so I've been out of town for the last 4 or 5 days and wasn't able to respond to the question on the scripture study group because I left my phone, my personal phone, at home by accident. And so sorry, I didn't see everybody's texts and questions and stuff until last night. So anyway, Alex asked a question around the garments of skin, around are there legends or stories about the coats of skin being passed down to Noah and then being taken by Ham and given to Nimrod, and then Esau gets them, and then Jacob uses them to deceive his dad, and so on. And yes, there are like the Book of Jubilees, which is like a pseudepigraphical book, an apocryphal book, the Book of Jasher, the Zohar, I think, then a bunch of like rabbinical legends and talk about this stuff. And yeah, basically the idea is that when if you kind of collect all of the stories together, because there's not like one story that pieces all of it together from what I can tell, but it's kind of like across the board. If you kind of piece it all together, basically Adam and Eve are leaving the Garden of Eden. They're going to go out into the lone and dreary wilderness, and it's going to be scary out there. Not just thorns and thistles, but there'll be animals too that are going to be like ferocious, meat-eating animals that might hurt Adam and Eve. Like the lion isn't going to lie down with the lamb anymore. The lion's going to be a nasty predator. And so God gives Adam and Eve this coat of skins in it. And the legend is, when animals see the coat of skins, they're like the glory of the coat of skins. The animals recognize like the power and authority of the coat of skins, and so they will bow down to Adam and Eve and won't. They'll still kind of act as if they were in the Garden of Eden. They'll be protected, like from the ferocity of beasts and stuff, because of the coat of skins. And so that gets passed down from father to firstborn son. It actually becomes like the thing that says, "This is my firstborn son," which doesn't have to always be the firstborn son. It can be just whatever son the dad thinks should be given like the authority to rule the family after the dad is gone. And so it gets passed on down all the way to Noah. And the legends say this is how Noah was able to get the animals on the ark, was that the animals saw Noah wearing the coat of skins. They like bow down to him, and they listen to his commands, and he can get them on the ark, and they all like live peacefully on the ark because of the coat of skins. Like Noah, it's like basically like he's carrying like the peace and power and authority of Eden around with him through the coat of skins, right? Like wherever he goes with it, it's like a little bubble of protection from thorns and thistles and the fallenness of this world, right? And the animals are like they were in the Garden of Eden, all nice and lovely and everything. So that's the idea. And then Noah, in the legends, Noah, gets drunk in his tent, and Ham steals the coat of skins from his dad. And the coat of skins, in these legends, are even called like the skins of priesthood. They're like associated with priesthood power and authority, and so Ham steals them and gives them to his descendant. I think it's a grandson or something, Cush, or Canaan, one of the two, which is why in the legends Noah curses them from the priesthood, right? So anyway, these stories, I bring that up to point out, like, these legends pop up because basically what happens is when you read the Old Testament story, you don't understand the story. Like, no one did, right? Like, the story of Noah drunk in his tent, and then Ham sees the nakedness of his father, and then afterwards Noah's all mad, and he curses. He doesn't curse Ham, he curses Ham's like grandson or whatever. And like, so later rabbis and later people writing these books that didn't make it in the Bible and stuff, they're trying to explain these stories and like why is the story work this way. So they're filling in the gaps, right? And when they fill in the gaps, a common way they did this for these stories that kind of don't make sense is they use the coat of skins as the reason. It's like, well, the way to explain why what Ham is doing is he's taking the coat of skins, so then he sees the nakedness of his father. What he's really doing is trying to steal priesthood authority and like the power to be the firstborn son and everything. And so when Noah finds out, he curses the descendant that Ham gives it to, right? Like, because it's ill-gotten, it's not gotten legitimately. So it was done through deceptive and means or whatever, through falsity. So that's the idea. Is that so basically Ham steals it and he gives it to Cush, and Cush is the father of Nimrod, and then Nimrod gets it. And the reason why in these legends, the reason why Nimrod is a mighty hunter is because the animals bow down to him, and so he abuses the authority of the coat of skins. He uses it to like trick animals into bowing down, and then he kills them all. And and he becomes a mighty hunter that way. But all the people don't realize that's what's happening. They just think that Nimrod's like super skilled hunter and can protect them from the wild, right? And so that's who you would pick to be your king. And that's why Nimrod is like the first king of Babylon in the legends, that is because the people are like, you're the guy that can protect us from like the wild. Now this brings me back to another point. Like a biblical scholar has pointed out that the word for a coat of skins, the word for skin is really similar to the Hebrew word for skin is really similar to the Hebrew word for city. And so, and both things do the same thing. They have the same function. A coat of skins is meant to protect Adam and Eve and their descendants, from the harsh, lone and dreary world. And when Cain kills Abel, the Lord tells him, well, you'll be cursed from the ground. Like the ground's not only will it not produce thorns and thistles, it's going to produce nothing for you. Like whatever you sow into the ground is what you get back. And Cain sowed death into the ground. And so he gets death back, which is nothing, right? He gets nothing back. So because of that, Cain is the first city builder in the Bible. He's the one that decides, okay, well, if I can't farm anymore, if I can't get anything out of the ground, then I've got to build a city where I can basically like rely on the labor of others. Because the city, the fundamental structure of a city is division of labor, right? Like no longer do you have to farm. You can provide a service for people, and in exchange for that service, you can get goods or food or whatever. That's the idea of a city, right? It's like cooperation, division of labor. Well, Cain sets up the city where he's in charge. So the service he's providing is, I'll be your king if you give me stuff to live off of. Basically, like it's the taxation system, okay? And the Bible is like really suspicious of Cain's city building efforts. In fact, the first city, Cain's son is named Enoch, and his city is named the city of Enoch, and it's meant to be a foil to the city of Enoch being built by like the good Enoch. And in that city, people aren't being exploited, or taxed or whatever. Their wealth and everything is coming through like loving cooperation, right? And voluntarily given, right? That's the idea, not forced through taxation. Anyway, that I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole, but the point is like there's this biblical scholar that's pointed out the similarities between the words. It's like a pun. There's a pun in the Hebrew, and the Hebrew writers are like this. They do puns all the time. They use the language very poetically and very literary. I mean, it's actually kind of fun and cool. But there's a pun on the Hebrew word for coat of skins and the Hebrew word for city. And so Adam and Eve are passing down the coat of skins to like the firstborn son, and that's like the good guys, the good line. There's if you notice after Genesis, after the fall, there are two seeds, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, basically, that are being traced through the early pages there of Genesis. And the seed of the woman that will like crush the head of the serpent is supposed to come through like Abel, who gets murdered, and then Seth, who follows up after him, and that line. And then the seed of the serpent is Cain and his line, because they keep falling into the trap of the serpent, like trying to do things the serpent's way. So it traces these two lines, and they're foils for each other. And the protection, if you kind of piece it all together, in the Bible itself, like the protection is like coming from God through the coat of skins for the for the line of the seed of the woman. And the protection from the lone and dreary world and from like fallenness is coming through the city by Cain's line. And it climaxes in the city of Babylon, in the story of the tower. They say like, hey, let us like combine together so that we can build a tower to get to heaven, and like so that we can make a name for ourselves and we won't be scattered abroad. They're like trying to prevent being like all the bad stuff of like being out in the lone and dreary wilderness. So anyway, that's why Nimrod gets put in as king of Babylon, is because in these legends, right? The Bible isn't this explicit, of course, right? These legends like are gap fillers. They're trying to like fill out the story. And there's basically saying Nimrod becomes the king because he gets, his ancestors, starting with Ham, steal the coat of skins, and now he has them, and he can like make animals bow to him, and he can butcher them and protect people from them, but also like provide food that way, and he becomes king over Babylon. Well, Nimrod is out and about like, doing his thing as a mighty hunter, and Esau is actually a legitimate good hunter. The Bible makes this note. And again, the Bible itself doesn't like tell any of the stories. It just says Esau was really good at hunting. So the legends say that Nimrod was jealous of Esau because Esau was actually a good hunter and Nimrod was like illegitimate. He's just doing it through like the coat of skins, right? So he wants to go and kill Esau, but Esau finds out that basically Nimrod's trying to kill him because he's jealous. And so Esau like turns the tables on him and hides and like jumps out and cuts off his head. And so he kills Nimrod in the legends, and he takes the coat of skins, and now Esau has the coat of skins. And the reason, and this is like one of the explanations at least of why it says Esau was a hairy man, is that he's wearing like these coat of skins that have like the hair on them, the fur or whatever. This is, again, this is just like little bits and pieces from legends or whatever, right? So anyway, Esau comes in from hunting and he's like worn out and tired of everything. He sells his birthright to Jacob. So Rebecca thinks, all right, well, I'm going to take the coat of skins that Esau got from Nimrod and give them to Jacob. Now Jacob goes to his dad and tricks his dad into giving him the birthright because his dad thinks he's Esau because he can feel the hair, right, of the coat of skins. These are the legends, right? So then the Jacob gets the birthright and he passes it down to his son Joseph, so the coat of many colors is actually the coat of skins. I can tell you in the Hebrew, we read this story in my Hebrew classes all the time. Many colors could be the translation, but honestly, like, it's a word no one, in my opinion, knows how to translate. Like, it's never used in any other like context that makes enough sense. So I used to call it in class, just to be funny, I used to call it Joseph's invisibility cloak, because invisibility was like one of the possible definitions in the dictionary we were using. It was like the last possible definition. And so I thought I'd be funny and, say that Jacob gave Joseph an invisibility cloak. I don't think anybody else really thought it was that funny. I think my professor sometimes got annoyed with it because I was, not taking it seriously enough. But in any event, I bring up that story to say it's really unclear what the translation should be. And so because of that, you get gap fillers, you get these legends, and the legends say, oh, it was the coat of skins, right? So, and it fits in the story because the coat of skins is meant to represent like the right of the firstborn being passed down from generation to generation, and like the protection of God, and it represents the priesthood and all these things, which is what the right of the firstborn is. It's the priesthood rights. And so, when Joseph receives the coat from his dad, all his brothers get super jealous, and and your question is like, why? It would only make sense for them to get jealous if the coat represented something beyond just like, I like this kid, right? That might get people jealous too, but to like murder him, to like basically throw him in a pit and want to kill him or sell him off into slavery, it's more in order for that to happen, it's because the coat represents that Joseph was going to be the firstborn son. And what that meant was you have the right and the authority to rule over the family when the dad is gone, but you also get more resources. You get a double portion of an inheritance so that you can take care of the family when they're in trouble. Okay. So a lot of the stories in the Genesis and even in the Book of Mormon is all around the right of the firstborn, right? This is why Laman and Lemuel are mad at Nephi, is because it's because he's the younger brother and he's getting the first, he's going to be the firstborn son. I mean, that's what, when it says Nephi is like favored and he's going to be in charge and everything, because, Lehi basically appoints Nephi to be in charge and to be the firstborn son. When Lehi dies, he wants Nephi to take over. And that means Nephi will get an extra inheritance and Nephi will have blah, 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 and a power and authority and everything. And Laman and Lemuel don't like that. So they want to murder Nephi. And it's not just about like jealousy or petty jealousy or I mean, it's still petty, but not like low level pettiness. It's like pettiness over the fact that like Nephi was getting legitimate power and money, right? You can think of it that way. And they don't like it. So they're going to do something about it. And that's actually the story of every brother conflict. It's the same conflict. It's Joseph his dad was signaling, you're going to get more power and money than your brothers. And the brothers don't like it. So they want to get rid of Joseph, right? Jacob and Esau are fighting over who gets the power and the money from dad. Abraham and Lot have a little bit of a battle. Cain and Abel is a battle over who's the chosen son, basically. So it happened. Isaac and Ishmael is another one. It's a battle over who will be the chosen, the beloved son. This is actually like, so beloved son can be a title. It's like the one that gets chosen to be the firstborn and given that extra power and authority and resources like money to be able to take care of the family. And so like, this is why, this is part of the reason why Jesus is called, I mean, he is the firstborn and everything, and he's the beloved son and everything, but there's like cultural baggage that goes along with those terms that is more than just that he's the first one born. It's that he's the one chosen by God to be given extra power and authority and extra resources, extra goodness. He's full of grace and truth to bless the rest of the family. And the stories are told to show like why one son was chosen over another. So like if you read the story of Joseph, for example, Judah, they're like in the middle of the story of Joseph, there's like a cutaway to Judah, who was a competitor to be the chosen son and receive the firstborn inheritance. And Judah, there's like these terrible stories of how Judah does not take care of the family well at all. In fact, he and his sons are extremely selfish. Judah's like, I mean, they're like the worst, craziest stories that I won't get into them right now. Maybe if you guys are interested, I will explain them in more depth. But the point of the stories is to say Judah is not a good candidate to be the firstborn son. He doesn't, because he won't use that power and authority to help his family. And Joseph is a good candidate to be the firstborn son because he uses his power and authority to help his family, even after they've abused him and sold him into slavery. So that's what these stories are kind of showing. So like whenever you read those crazy stories in Genesis and you're like, what is going on? Like, so one of the stories is like one of the sisters, one of Jacob's daughters, one of the sisters of the 12 sons gets like raped by some dudes in a city. And the oldest brothers, like thinking they're going to do their job of protecting her and like show, hey, I'm worthy of being the firstborn son. I'm a protector of the family. They go and like, I can't remember the story. I got to go look it up. They either circumcise everybody in the city or they like murder some people in the city or something. I don't know. But the story isn't meant to be like, hey, look at how good these guys took care of their sister. It actually shows that they like overreacted, that they're not the right candidates for the firstborn son. So like when we read stories in the Old Testament, a lot of times we're trying to figure out like how these guys can be an example to us. Well, they're not examples all the time. They're often bad examples on purpose to show like this is not how you should behave, right? Or why, they have faults or something. So if it strikes you as odd, it probably is meant to strike you as odd. And to be like, oh, that doesn't seem right. And yeah, that's probably why. They're probably showing you like out of these brothers, why do you think Joseph was chosen to be the firstborn son? Because the other guys are kind of screwed up, they kind of do bad things with their opportunities. So anyway, that's But at the same time, there are flaws. Like Joseph is flawed. He's not perfect. He wants to take revenge on his brothers at first. He struggles with forgiving them, and then finally comes to grips with forgiving them. He plays games with them and stuff. And that, I think the game playing, we try to interpret it as, it's all well and good, but we should actually just interpret it as like Joseph was struggling with wanting to have vengeance, right? And and Abraham, not everything Abraham did was perfect, and the stories aren't set up to say that, but we always try to interpret it that way. But like Sarah and Abraham mistreated Hagar, no doubt. And but so it shows you though that like God is also full of grace, and he works with what he's got, and you don't have to be perfect in order to be chosen, right? So the Old Testament actually is really cool because of these stories. It's closer to real life. Like, we aren't very good, and most of us rely on a lot of grace and forgiveness in order to be chosen by God. And that's what the Old Testament is showing. So anyway, that's a long digression away from stories about coats of skin to get to firstborn sons and the awesomeness of the Old Testament. But it's maybe a good run up because we're getting close to Old Testament this year. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy that discussion. If you have more questions about it, I'd be happy to share. But it shows you the thing I think is interesting about the coat of skins, just to wrap it up, is it shows you that there was something in the air, in the cultural air, where they thought the coat of skins was important enough, that it had something to do with power and authority, had something to do with priesthood, that it should be the thing that the brothers are fighting over in these stories. Even though it's not stated in the biblical text itself, these legends pop up to say that's really what's going on, is these brothers are fighting over the firstborn stuff, which is in the biblical text. They are fighting over firstborn stuff, but the symbol of the firstborn stuff is the coat of skins, right? And so that's why they're fighting over it. And that's, and it has this power, it has like magical properties, basically. Like, it protects you from the lone and dreary world. And so that's in the cultural air. It's in the mindset, right? And that's kind of cool to think about that it was. And in fact, I think there's even a legend that says that the robe of the high priest was the coat of skins too. I'll have to go check on that one. Don't quote me on it. But the idea is like it keeps getting handed down through the generations, right? When it says like Elijah is hairy or John the Baptist wears a hairy coat, some scholars think that's like meant to be a callback to like, hey, they're like a chosen one because they have a coat of skins, like maybe it's not the same one as Adam's, but but it's like Adam's, and so therefore it's a sign of power and authority from God or something like that. So interesting things to think about, like that might be what's in the cultural air. All right, talk to you guys later.